Haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Tzadik Hey Amud Beis, 3 lines from the top. The Mishnah enumerated differences between Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni. Amongst them is that the Pesach Rishon must be eaten with the singing of Hallel, whereas Pesach Sheni does not require Hallel b'shas achila. Says the Gemara, Menohani mili. From where do we know that the Pesach Rishon requires Hallel during Shas Achila? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yehoitzadok. Omar Kro, it says in the Pasuk, this is Yeshaya depicting the Zman of the Geula, comparing it to the Leil HaSeder, the night of Geulas Mitzrayim. The Pasuk is Ashir Yelochem Kilel Hiskadesh Chag. The song will be for you like the night that the Chag was Niskadesh. Laila HaMikudosh Lechag Ton Halil. The night that is sanctified for Chag, that requires Halil, namely the first night of Pesach Rishon, which is Tesvav Nisan. Laila She'en Mikudash Lechag Ein Ton Halil. Whereas second Pesach, which is not Mikudash Bechag, does not require Halil. However, the Mishnah says what they are similar is that they both require Halil b'shas the Asiyah of the Avodah of the Korban Pesach. Says the Gemara, Zeh v'zeh tu in Halil b'asiyasin v'chulei. My taima, what's the reason for this? Says the Gemara, one of two answers. Ibois eimo lailo kamemait yoim lo kamait. We just excluded the night from the previous pasuk of Yeshaya, but that's only excluding the night on Tesvav. But Yudalid, that would be the same. So just like Yudalid b'Nisan, b'Shas the Avodah, the Hakrova of the Korban Pesach requires Halil, so too Yudalid b'Iyar in the Korban Pesach Sheni would also require Halil b'Shas the Avodah. V'boiseimo Efshar Yisrael shoichtin es Psachim v'noitin es Luvein ve'ein oim Halil. Are you going to say the time that Klal Yisrael does mitzvahs in the Beis HaMikdash? For example, it's Sheichet the Korban Pesach, or it's Noitel Belulav on Sukkis. Are you not going to require Halil? So therefore, it requires Halil both on Yudalid B'Nisan as well as Yudalid B'Iyar. Now the Gemara quotes the Mishnah Necholin Sli V'Chulei, that they both require that the Korban Pesach be roasted. And it also goes on to say, another comparison is that they are not only eaten and roasted al matzah murorin, but it also states that both the Korban Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni are doichnes HaShabbos. That means when Yudalid b'Nisan comes out to be on Shabbos, we shech the Korban Pesach. Similarly, when Yudalid b'Iyar comes out to be on Shabbos. Says the Gemara, Shabbos in Tumaloi. The Gemara makes a diuk. Shabbos, we see from the Mishnah, that we say that the Korban Pesach is doiches HaShabbos, but it's not doiches HaTuma. Masnisni lo Rabbi Yehuda. It must be that the Mishnah like Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya, doiches HaShabbos and doiches HaTuma. The Tanakama says in this brayso that when it comes to Shabbos, Korban Pesach is doiche, but when it comes to Tuma, it's not doiche. Rabbi Yehuda ima'af doiches HaTuma. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda argues and he said it is doichet tuma. Now we know when it comes to when the roiv of the tzibur are tamei, so then nonetheless we still are doichet the tuma and we bring the Korban Pesach Rishon. But in regards to then the second Korban for the individual, so the individual he's not doichet es hatuma in the Rishon in the Korban Pesach Sheni. So too is not doichet the Korban, the tumah of the Korban Rishon as well. So this is what the Brayso says again. Doichet HaShabbos and doichet HaTumah. Tanakama says that the Korban Pesach is doichet HaShabbos as well as doichet HaTumah. Rabbi Yehuda oimer av doichet HaTumah, whereas Rabbi Yehuda is choylek, and it says it is doichet the Tumah by Korban Pesach Sheni. My taima de Tanakam. Why does the Tanakama say that is not doichet es HaTumah? Mibnei Tumah dechiyuso yachsov yaseh betumah. The Tanakh has a svar. It says, why is it that the person who did not bring the Korban Pesach Rishon is because he had a tumah? So since it was nidche, so that he can then go ahead and bring a Korban Pesach Sheni. But then Korban Pesach Sheni, he's also tummy. You're going to say he's going to bring the Korban Pesach then in a state of Tumah. If he could not bring in the state of Tumah Barishon, we're not going to allow him to bring a Korban Pesach in the state of Tumah the Sheni. That's the Tanakama's svara. Rabbi Yehuda Oimer Af Doiches Tumah. Why? Because HaTorah Chazra Alav La'aseh Sebetahara. The Torah wants you lichatchila to bring the Korban Pesach in a state of Tahara. And therefore, if a person was Tamei, the individual was Tamei, and Yudal ben Nisan, so then he has to wait, it's pushed off until Yudal be'iyar. But Lo Zacha, then Yaseh Betuma. If it was not Zeicha lichatchila to bring the Korban Pesach in a state of Tahara, then B'di'evid, when it comes to the Korban Pesach Sheni, he will bring the Korban Pesach Sheni in a state of Tumah. Gemara brings the following Brisa Tanu Rabbanon. Pesach Rishon Doiche Nesa Shabbos. The Pesach Rishon is Doiche Shabbos when Yudal comes out to be on, Yudal Ben Nisan comes out to be on Shabbos. Pesach Sheni Doiche Shabbos. Similarly, we said Pesach Sheni is Doiche Shabbos when Yudal comes out to be Yar on Shabbos. Pesach Rishon Doiche Tumah. Pesach Sheni Doiche Tumah. Here it states, like the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, that the Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni are Doiche Tumah. Now, of course, the Pesach Rishon refers to the Tzibur. The Pesach Sheni refers to the individual. Pesach Rishon Ton Lina. Pesach Sheni Ton Lina. Here it adds in the Brisa that when it comes to the requirement to stay overnight, there's a requirement to stay overnight both by the Korban Pesach Rishon and Korban Pesach Sheni. Now that staying overnight requires that they not only stay overnight, but also is going to be also in the next day as well. And when it's Yontif, let's say in Yudal ben Nisan, the next day is Tesvav ben Nisan, is the first day of Yontif. So you could not leave Yerushalayim going out 2,000 amos. So it would have to be referring to only going to a short distance. Al Kopanim, here this opinion says that indeed one has to then stay overnight, both Pesach Rishon as well as Pesach Sheni. So Gemara now brings Doiches Hatuma Kiman. Who is the one in this brisa that says that the Korban Pesach is Doiches Hatuma? The Gemara says Ki Rabbi Yehuda. That's the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Ton Lina asked the Gemara, but then the same brisa says that it requires Lina. Does Rabbi Yehuda require Lina? Ask the Gemara. V'hatanya. Behold, it states in the following brisa. Rabbi Yehuda Oimer Minayin La Pesach Sheni. She'ein Ton Lina. Where do I know that Pesach Sheni does not require Lina? Shneimar says, Panisa ba'boikiv alach lo elecha. You'll turn in the morning and you'll go back to your house, to your tents. V'exidin says, Sheishes yomin toicha matzois. 6 days you shall eat matzois. Hanecha l'shisha ton lina. She'enecha l'shisha ein ton lina. When is it requiring lina? That's the first night of Pesach. The Hainu Pesach Rishon. When it comes out to be Yudal ben Nisan. Then it requires lina, that you stay over the first night. And again, since Tezvav is Yantiv, you can't go beyond 2,000 amos. But at least it's saying over here you can't even go beyond even a short distance because you have to stay in Yerushalayim. That's in regards to the first Pesach Rishon, right? Because it states over here, Sheishes Yomim Toichal Matzos, where there's a requirement to eat matzos the rest of the week. And therefore that's not required by Pesach Sheni. So here we have a steer. On the one hand, it indicates that this brisa is altered by Rabbi Yehuda because he says that the Pesach, the Korban Pesach is Doiches Atuma. On the other hand, it also says in the brisa that it requires Lina both on Rishon as well as Sheni, and yet we have a brisa that states otherwise. That Rabbi Yehuda says that it's not requiring Lina and Pesach Sheni. And since the Gemara Trei Tanoi Valid Rabbi Yehuda, there are two different Tanoim in understanding what is the kavana, what is the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara now brings the following Mishnah in regards to those who are roiv tzibur tamei. So we say that it's doiche es hatuma, and therefore the Korban Pesach is brought in a state of tuma on Yudal ben Nisan. Our Mishnah now qualifies this din. Not only are they able to bring the Korban Pesach and eat it, the Gemara, the Mishnah, no. The Gemara now brings the next Mishnah that speaks about roiv of the tzibur who's in a state of tuma. It's doiche. The Korban Pesach is doiche satuma. Thereby they can go ahead and bring the Korban Pesach on Yudal ben Nisan and eat the Korban Pesach in their state of Tumah. Our Mishnah now qualifies this. Says the Mishnah, HaPesach sheba betumah lo yoichlu mimenu zovin vezovois nidos violos. Although Tmei Meisim, who are in a state of Tumah, when they rove Tzibur, they still then bring the Korban Pesach in their state of Tumah. That's in regards to Tmei Meisim. But other states of Tumah, for example, Zovim or Zovois, or Mitzorois, or here in the case Nidos and Yoldois, all of them are not allowed to eat the Korban Pesach in a state of Tumah. However, V'ima'achlu, says the Tanakama, P'tur Mikoris, if they do, however, eat the Korban Pesach, B'di Eved, they're going to be potter from Kores. The Gemara explain why this is so according to Tanakama. But according to Tanakama, however, although they are going to be potter from Kores from eating the Korban Pesach and partaking in the Korban Pesach, however, they are going to be chayiv Kores for entering the Beis HaMikdash or the state of Tumah. Rabbi Eliezer poiter af al bias mikdash. On this, Rabbi Eliezer argues and says they will be potter also if they will enter the Beis HaMikdash in their state of Tumah. The Gemara will explain this as well. The Gemara now brings a brisa giving the support for our opinions in the Mishnah. Ton Rabbanan. Zavin v'zavois nidois v'yoldois she'achlu b'pesach sheba b'tumah. All of these individuals are in a state of Tumah. If they eat the Korban Pesach in that state of Tumah, Yocha yu chayavin, I might think that they're going to be chayiv Kores. Talmud loymar kol tohor yoichel basar. The pasuk in regards to eating the Korban Shlomim says all those who are Tor shall eat the Korban Pesach, Korban Shlomim, the basar of the Korban Shlomim. The Pesach goes on to say, "Va'nefesh asher toichal basar mizevach Shlomim asher Hashem v'tumas alav nichrasa." However, the Pesach goes on to say those who are Tamei and eat the meat of the Korban Shlomim, they will be chayiv Kores. From here we learn out nechal litaharim chayavim alem mishum mim tamei. This juxtaposition tells us that that which is eaten by taharim, then when those who are eating it in a state of tumah will be chayiv Kores. That's the juxtaposition. When the Reisha talks about somebody who's tahor, and then the Seifos talks about somebody who's tamei will get Kores. However, v'she'eino nechal l'taharin, if it's not eaten by taharim, like in our case, in the Korban Pesach, when rov the tzibur is tamei, so they eat the Korban Pesach in their state of tumah, then ein tmein chayavin ala mishum tamei. Then those who will then eat the Korban Pesach in a state of tumah, even if it's not a tmei meis, it's a state of Zavin or Zavos, other types of Tumah, will not be Chayiv Kores. That's how the Tanakama learns from these Psukim that they're going to be Potter B'di Eved from eating the Korban Pesach. Rabbi Eliezer Oimer, he says, Yachol Dochkoi Zavin V'nichnesu La'azoro B'Pesach Haba B'Tumah. Rabbi Eliezer says, I might think that those Zavin who are a state of Tumah, and they push, so to speak, and enter the Azara. They're not allowed to enter the Azara, but they still go into the Azara on Pesach in the state of Tumah. Yochayu Chayavim. I might think that they are going to be Chayiv because a person who's Tamei is Chayiv normally Kores for entering the Beis HaMikdash grounds, the Azara. Talmud Loimar. Therefore, he says here it's different. Vishalchu min hamachane. And you shall send out from the camp kol tzarua, v'kol zov, v'kol tomei l'nefesh. Anybody have tzaras, or is it in the state of ziva, or in a state of tomei l'nefesh, you came in contact with a dead person. Bisman shetmei meisim, we learn now from this pasuk, mishtalchin, then zov mitzorim mishtalchin. The time that tomei meisim are sent out, then also the zov mitzorim also sent out of the camp. However, when the meisim are not mishtalchin, like in this case, the Korban Pesach, when rov the tzivor is tamei, then ain't zav mitzorah mishtalchin, and therefore they will not be chayiv kars. Again, lichatchi, they're not allowed to be coming into the azar, but if they did come, they will not be chayiv kores. Boy, Rav Yosef asked the following question: Dochku tmei meisim v'nichnus leheichal b'Pesach haba b'tumah mahu. Here we said that those who are roiv tzibur came in contact with a mace, so nonetheless, we said that the Korban Pesach is doiche the tumah. They bring the Korban Pesach in their state of tumah, and they even eat the Korban Pesach in the state of tumah on Yudalid ben Nisan, the first Korban Pesach. What happens if they went further than the Azara? They went into the Heichal, which has more Kedusha. What's the din? That was a question that was Rav Yosef asked. Midi ish, what are the two study? Midi ishtri tumas Azara ishtri nami tumas Heichal. Do we say the same way that they indeed were permitted to go into the Azar, they would be able to then go into the Heichal? Because after all, we're talking about those who are Tamei Mesim, so they were able to go into the Azara. They were able to then bring Korban Pesach in the state of Tumah. But could they go into the Heichal, which is more Kedusha? So the first side says the same way they were able to go to the Azara, they're able to go to the Heichal. The second side says no. Odilma, my the ishtri, my the lo ishtri. Or we say no, they were mutter to go into the Azara because they had to bring the Korban Pesach. That's permissible. But to go beyond, to the Heichal, not. Omar Rava said, Omar Kro, I'll bring you a pasuk to answer your question. It says in the pasuk, Vishalchu mina machane, that they shall be sent out, those who are in the state of Tamei, from the machane. Afilu mixas machane. He learns out by Yishlachu mina machane is mixas, from is mixas machane, partially from the machane, which means to say, he's saying that although they have to go leave the machane shechina, but even those who are allowed to still remain in the Azara, they would still have to leave the Heichal, whereby they would be chayiv, according to this opinion of Rava. Because miktsas, machne, they do have to leave. Ikadamre, there are those who say that Rava said lekula, to answer the question the other way. Omar Rava, Omar Krovi shalchu mina machane. It says in the pasuk, you shall send them out from the machane. Here it learns out el chutz lemachane tishalchum. Outside of the machane, you shall send them. Kol heiche dekarinam be el michutz lemachane tishalchum. Wherever we say that you shall send them outside from the machane, then karinam be vayishilchu min hamachane. Then we can activate the pasuk and apply the pasuk of vayishalchu min hamachane, which means the entire machane. And therefore, since over here in the state of Tuma, they are able to be in the machane, so therefore they're able to be also in the heichal as well, and they won't be chayiv if they went inside the heichal to be chayiv kares.